Hello, freak bitches.
Yeah,
If
the
this,
the community thing I think is like a key thing there.
yes.
Like I recently did a debunk of a UFO that the Chilean Navy supposedly saw.
What was
And
that? I'm not aware of that one.
it was like this thing. There was a Chilean Navy helicopter had this infrared camera, and they saw this two black dots off in the distance that looked like a weird thing, like a figure eight type thing flying away, and then it started like spraying out this stuff, and they couldn't figure what it was, and they chased after it, but it was too fast and it got away from them. And the Chilean government has an official UFO investigation team, and they set them on it, and they spent 2 years figuring out what it was, and they couldn't figure out what it was, and so they said it's a confirmed unidentified object, and then they published their findings, and then I and some other people on Metabunk looked at it, and we figured out it was actually just a plane flying away from the helicopter, leaving some contrails behind, and we actually figured out exactly which plane it was. And so this got a bit of play online, and I was on like Huffington Post and things like that. And some UFO enthusiasts started talking to me, and I joined their groups, and I joined a few other groups, and then I found myself in this kind of weird corner of the internet where everybody believes in UFOs unquestioningly, and they're always putting up these photographs of things, and people are like, "Oh, great capture, dude," and it's just something like a street light or something. But they think they have this confirmation bias, this group confirmation bias,
Yeah.
where they can't disagree with someone, and they know they're in a safe space, so they can put out whatever theory that they like, and they know that people will be like, they're just very supportive of them.
Yeah.
Like one that happened a couple of days ago, some woman put up a picture of a strange light that she said was in the sky. And so I downloaded the picture and I boosted the brightness, and I saw it was actually a reflection of something in a security light on a porch. And you could see it was like there was trees behind it, and it was a security light, and there's this reflection. So I posted that, and then I started getting called like a shill for pointing this out.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people who like said, "Oh yeah, it's just this light," but other people were like, "What the heck? Why don't you believe me? Why are you like invalidating my claims?"
Right.
And so they want to have these kind of walled gardens where everybody believes the same thing.
That's a good way to put it. The walled gardens. It really is a good way to put it, because that is what those communities seemed like, and that's one of the things that I found when I did that television show. I still harbored a few conspiracy theories before I did that show, but doing that show for several months and constantly interviewing people who believed in outlandish things, I found the same thing over and over and over again. Illogical people with very little evidence believing things in almost a religious way. And I found it with Bigfoot, and I found it with UFOs, and I found it with chemtrails, and I found it with, it was just one after the other in varying stages of ridiculousness.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like contrails and chemtrails were the most nutty people. The UFO people seem to be the most reasonable, because it's the most reasonable theory out of all of them. The idea that we have spaceships, why doesn't someone else have spaceships? There's hundreds of billions of galaxies in the known universe, hundreds of billions of planets in each galaxy. The odds of there being some sort of a life form out there is pretty high. But there's nothing. That's the craziest thing. Like, the more I talked to these people, the more I went over all their evidence, air quotes evidence, the more I ask them why they believe things. There is nothing. There's not a goddamn thing that you can put on a scale. There's not a thing that you can weigh. There's not a thing that you can measure. There's not a thing that you can look at a photo and go, wow, that's compelling. There's not one. There's just an idea. And that idea is that there's something in the sky that flies around that we, either might catch if you're there, the right place, the right time, or not, and that they're from another planet. But
yeah, if you look at what they put forward as the best evidence, it's often like
it's nothing.
Cases from the 60s where there's an eyewitness who said something, like there was some guy on a road who says he blacked out and his car got messed up.
It's always that.
From the 60s.
Well, that's the other thing, that I know too much about psychedelic drugs, and I know about endogenous psychedelic drugs, the brain producing this chemical called dimethyltryptamine that happens when you're sleeping. Now, they've proven that this stuff is produced in the liver and in the lungs, and they believe it's now, they've got evidence that it's produced in the pineal gland. It's a very potent psychedelic drug that your brain produces, and your brain produces it during REM sleep. So these people, they all take naps, And during these naps, they have these crazy fucking dreams. And it's entirely possible that during these dreams, what happened is they got some endogenous DMT dump, whether they were under stress or whether they just had an erratic dump of this human neurochemical that entered into their bloodstream, whatever it is that caused it. All these fucking UFO abductions, all of them, like almost exactly happen at night. And they happen while these people are sleeping. Like, wouldn't you just assume that you were dreaming? Like, why wouldn't you assume you were dreaming?
Yeah, I have these. I used to have these kind of night terror hallucination things, which were kind of like that.
Yeah.
And it was always the same type of thing. It was like a giant spider coming down from the ceiling towards me.
And you couldn't move?
I was like, frozen for a second, and then I would jump out of bed and turn on the light and like look for the spider. And it's happened all the time. Like, and I knew because there was no spider that it wasn't real, but I could see if someone was having a different type of hallucination that seemed a bit more real, and then it came in between sleep cycles for them. Then totally, you can see because it seemed completely real.
Yeah.
Like I used to have them all the time, and it was always like, it was horrible. It was this like giant, really realistic spider, and it wasn't like I was dreaming somewhere else. I was in the room, and I could see it like I was seeing something crawling across the table right here. It was this hallucination. I don't really get them anymore. I don't know what it was. My brain's fixed itself or whatever. But
it's probably a lot has to do with being young and confused and hormones and nerves and then also like your brain starts filling in the blanks. If you don't have a very good understanding of the universe, and, your imagination runs wild. It was very confusing to me doing that television show, and it really changed me a lot. And it changed me to the point that people started accusing me of being co-opted by the government, that the government threatened my family and told me to stop talking about conspiracies. And then the idea that I wouldn't say that if that was the case. Like, you don't think I would fucking tell everybody if someone threatened my family because I was talking about UFOs? I'd be telling everybody. I'd be like, hey, man. Yeah. I would tell all my friends. I'd be like, dude, they fucking threatened me because I was talking about UFOs. This shit is real. Hangar 18. Area 51.
I think there was a paper a while ago published on like how many people it would take to cover up certain conspiracy theories and the probability of none of those people ever talking.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. Like, you can't have tens of millions of people in on a conspiracy about it.
What do you think happened at Roswell?
I think
Roswell, New Mexico, that's the big one. July 1947, I think a UFO crashed.
Yeah, I think it's what they said it was. It was those balloons that they were using to detect Russian nuclear bombs in the atmosphere, and it was a secret program, so they weren't allowed to tell anybody about it. So they came in, they picked up the remains of the balloon, and then the story just took off.
That's a funny one, though. Boy, that's made a whole town famous for UFOs. If you go there now, they have like alien-themed gift shops.
They're milking it. And it's like you said earlier, like people make money out of something, and then they get stuck into that. So because they're making money out of it, they're motivated to promote whatever it is, if it's Bigfoot or if it's aliens.
Have you ever seen anything in all of your years of trying to debunk these things that made you question whether or not this was a legitimate phenomena?
What, the chemtrail thing?
Anything. UFO, chemtrail,
well, the thing
Bigfoot.
is, like with UFOs, there's always things that you can't explain. There are things that are unidentified, but there's usually plausible explanations for them.
Right.
I like to, whenever I'm given something like a mysterious thing, I like to list all the explanations that I can think of. And maybe none of them are a perfect fits that you can guarantee this is what the explanation is. But like it being like a ghost or an alien spacecraft as an explanation is usually pretty close to the bottom. Like you start out saying, oh, it's a balloon, or it's a bird, or it's a drone, or it's CGI, or it's it's something somebody faked afterwards,
right?
Or it's an alien spacecraft, or in between that, like it's something else that we don't know what it is.
Is there any evidence, like in terms of UFOs, that's interesting?
I haven't, to be honest, I haven't really looked into the whole sphere of UFOlogy. I know a lot of people have, but just looking at the quality of the best cases they put forward, like I mentioned earlier, like, some guy in 1964, got his car beat up on a road.
Right.
These are like the top 10 best cases, and this was like number 2 or something.
What about Bob Lazar? You ever looking at that guy?
I don't know. Which was he? Like
Bob Lazar is the guy who
abductee?
supposedly worked at Area 51 and became a whistleblower.
No, I haven't. But a lot of it's something you see in the 9/11 community and in the chemtrail community, is people kind of becoming celebrities.
Yeah.
And then they kind of start going on road shows, and they go to conventions and they speak, and then they write books, and then they start doing things, and they get sucked into their beliefs.